Subscribe to Iron Age Instincts if you care about the kind of historical knowledge that actually worked in the real world, not museum glass history. What you're about to hear is one of those uncomfortable truths that makes modern building science look fragile. The Vikings were not guessing. They were not lucky. They solved wood rot in some of the harshest environments on Earth, and they did it with a process so effective that some of their timber still survives 1,000 years later. Stay with me for the next minute, because once you understand what they dipped their wood into and why it worked, you'll never look at pressure-treated lumber the same way again. Most people think Viking longevity came from luck, cold climates, or thick logs. That's wrong. Scandinavia is wet, cold, and brutal on timber. Rot should have destroyed longhouses, ships, docks, and roof beams within decades. Yet archaeological finds show preserved structural wood from Viking sites that outlasts modern pine by centuries. The secret wasn't the tree alone. It was what they did to the wood before it ever became a wall, a keel, or a post in the ground. This practice begins with understanding why Viking wood didn't rot like modern wood does. Wood rots when fungi and bacteria consume its sugars and cellulose. Modern treatments try to poison the organisms. Vikings took a smarter route. They removed the food source and sealed the structure of the wood itself. They did this using a hot dip made from pine tar, animal fats, and occasionally wood ash lye, applied when the wood was green or freshly dried. This wasn't paint. This was penetration. Pine tar, produced slowly in earthen kilns from resin-rich pine roots, was the backbone. This tar wasn't the thin roofing tar sold today. It was thick, acidic, antimicrobial, and water-repellent. When heated, it thinned enough to soak deep into wood fibres. When it cooled, it hardened inside the grain. Fungi could no longer breathe. Water could no longer sit in the pores. Rot starved to death. The dipping method mattered more than the ingredients themselves. Vikings didn't brush this mixture on as a surface coating. They submerged posts, planks, and ship timbers in hot tar mixtures for extended periods. Heat opened the wood's cellular structure. Capillary action pulled the liquid deep inside. Archaeological analysis of preserved Viking timbers shows tar penetration several millimeters below the surface, far deeper than modern sealants achieve. For ground contact posts, the lower third of the timber received the longest soak. This is where rot begins. This is why Viking fence posts and house supports lasted generations instead of years. If you're applying this knowledge today, the lesson is simple. Heat matters. Immersion matters. Surface coatings fail because rot starts inside. You know, animal fats weren't just filler. They were actually a kind of functional chemistry. Tallow from cattle or sheep was often mixed right into tar, and what this did was make the final coating a lot more flexible. See, wood expands and contracts with moisture and temperature. If you use rigid sealants, they just crack. But Viking-treated wood didn't do that. The fat acted as a plasticizer, keeping the tar from becoming brittle. This is honestly one reason Viking ships could flex in heavy seas without their protective layers failing. If you were restoring a traditional wooden boat, dock piling, or even a shed foundation post today, adding rendered animal fat to pine tar at a low ratio would recreate this flexibility. You'd want to heat both together slowly until they're fully blended, then apply while hot. This is old chemistry, not just nostalgia. And you know, wood ash lye played a quieter but critical role as well. Before dipping, some timbers were washed or, briefly soaked in weak lye made from wood ash and water. This alkaline solution stripped surface sugars and neutralized organisms already present. Think of it as sterilization without poison. When followed by tar dipping, it created a hostile environment for decay from the inside out. A practical modern application would be soaking green-cut posts overnight in a weak ash lye, then letting them dry slightly, and after that, hot dipping in pine tar. This sequence actually mirrors what archaeological and experimental reconstructions suggest Viking builders did for high-risk timbers. The choice of wood worked with the treatment, not against it. Vikings favoured slow-grown pine, spruce and oak, often split rather than sawn. Splitting follows the grain, preserving capillary channels that pull tar deeper. Modern sawn lumber, on the other hand, crushes fibres, limiting penetration. If you're serious about applying this method today, split logs outperform milled boards every time. This is why Viking roof shingles, ship planks and wall boards absorb treatments so effectively. The structure of the wood was respected, not shredded by blades. This method explains why Viking ships survived salt, sun and ice. Tar-treated hulls resisted rot, repelled marine organisms, and shed water continuously. Reapplication was part of maintenance, not failure. Once a year, ships were retarred, reheating and renewing protection. This layered defence system is actually the reason why some Viking ship fragments remain intact today, while untreated modern boats, they just fail within decades. You can still see this principle alive in traditional Scandinavian boatyards that quietly ignore modern coatings in favour of hot pine tar. Why this knowledge disappeared says more about industry than effectiveness. Pine tar production is slow. Hot dipping is labour-intensive. There's no patent. There's no quick sale. Modern chemical treatments favour speed and scale, not longevity. Viking methods don't fit quarterly profits, but they fit centuries of use. For homesteaders, survivalists or historical builders, this knowledge is freedom. Fence posts that last 50 years. Wooden foundations that resist rot without toxins. Boats and sheds maintained with fire and patience instead of chemicals and replacement. This is not reenactment. This is applied history. If this kind of deep, usable history matters to you, subscribe to Iron Age Instincts. Share this with someone who still believes modern always means better, and keep this knowledge alive where it belongs.